You're all online. Good to see you all online this morning. Lots of names on my screen. I'll start the intro. A few more people will join the call, and we'll get underway very shortly. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Cathy Ramsey, the Partnerships Manager here at the Tourism Industry Council of South Australia. We are the peak industry body of tourism in the state. And today is Wednesday, the 25th of August. You're joining me for the In Conversation series. It's a program undertaken regularly to keep South Australian tourism industry owners and stakeholders engaged and informed. Whilst I'll introduce our speaker very shortly, I just want to run through a few housekeeping matters with you all. Firstly, if everybody could keep their microphone on mute. You're welcome to show your faces though. I love to see everybody's faces. And let's use the chat function for any questions or comments. We'll endeavour to work through any questions you have through the session, but also allow a little bit of time at the end. So today I'm really pleased to be talking about a topic that I'm really passionate about in revenue management. Our guest speaker today is Tamie Matthews. She's the founder and CEO of RevenYou. Tammie's passion is helping the industry to upskill their knowledge, understanding, skills in pricing, revenue management, distribution, and sales. And this all comes from a lifetime of working in the hotel sector of our industry. Welcome, Tamie.
Thanks, Cathy. So happy to be here today.
Thanks, Tamie. So today, Tamie will be sharing with us her expertise in introducing the concept of revenue management and addressing the common mistakes and teaching us how to use revenue management and the concepts in our own businesses in a simple and profitable way. So, Tamie, revenue management, the word for me, honestly, it probably started about 15 years ago when I was back in the accommodation sector of our industry as well. We really saw the word start to evolve. However, airlines had been adopting revenue management methodology long before this. And while some of us probably don't even realise revenue management happens everywhere. Car parking, supermarkets, I think bananas are always a great example of this. So, Tamie, can you tell us more, quite simplistic, what is revenue management?
Well, do you want to bring up the slides, Cathy?
Yeah, absolutely, great reminder. That also helps. We've got a little bit of a presentation to help with today's session as well. So bear with me, guys, and let me, what is revenue management?
Okay, so basically, like you said, revenue management started about 20 years ago, I would say, and it came out of the airline industry where they were very good at managing their pricing, and they started to manage pricing by seat, by flight, by time of day and time of year. And hotels quickly caught on to this and thought, hey, this is a good idea. At first, it was just tweaking prices, sitting looking at an Excel sheet and deciding that we're going to change the price by a few dollars here, a few dollars there. But in 2021, that's really, really changed. And revenue management takes into account so much more. When I'm recruiting a revenue management person to work with me at RevenYou, I'm looking for a much more rounded person, one that's not just watching spreadsheets and data analytics. I want someone who understands what's going on in the world, who can tell me, for example, COVID, what borders are open and closed, what's going to determine where our markets come from, what trends and restrictions are in place in the world, in our state, in the country which we live, because it's so much more than just a length of stay or a close to arrival or watching some data. So many hotels have bad data anyway, but it's much more than just watching data. you've got to look at it as a big picture, and it all comes down to the word growth. Revenue management is all about growth. And one of my favorite catchphrases is, we've got to have more money in the bank account at the end of the month, every month, month on month.
Oh, and I'm sure that's what all our members on the call today, that's what everybody wants to set to achieve too. So Tamie, like you touched on, obviously it's been common in airlines and hotel industries, but it can be this methodology can be applied across so many different sectors these days. And as the core, as revenue management has evolved, we've seen it become quite a specialised skill set. But really, what are the core principles that, whilst we understand it's a specialised skill set, what are the core principles a business owner should be looking at? And I'm sure there's simple things that a business owner could be looking at and how they could adopt some revenue management methodology to start off as a starting point for their business.
So one of the first things you need to do is understand where you are right now. It doesn't matter if where you are is good, bad, indifferent, but you need to have a starting point, and then you need to look at where you want to be. So the core principles of revenue management are having the right room on sale. So is it a family room? Is it a spa room? Is it an apartment? Is it just a queen room? And you're selling it to the right client. So a queen room will probably go to a corporate client or a couple, whereas a spa room will be your customers looking for an anniversary or special occasion. An apartment might be two couples traveling together and they want a kitchen in their own bathrooms. You've got to make sure it's the right room being sold to the right client at the right moment. So we don't want to fill our room 6 months out at very cheap pricing. We want to make sure that we control the pace. So we fill our rooms at the right moment, at the right price, because you don't want to sell it at $100 if you could have waited a few weeks and sold it at $150, especially around events. Events are a really interesting one to start managing pricing wise, because there's so often hotels fill their event rooms, like their rooms over an event, a few months out. And if they'd hold off a little bit longer, the other hotels would have filled and they could have increased their pricing. So the price is really important.
And I'm sure that sort of applies for even tour operators, doesn't it, Tamie? Yes. If there's a Sea and Vines festival, a wine festival on in that time, you're going to have a increased demand. Yes. Or specialised packages you could be doing.
Yeah, I remember talking to a GM once a long time ago. They had a massive event every year in their town. This GM was very gutsy and would close out their hotel 6 months out. He would only open it for availability in the week prior to the event, and he would sell it for peak prices because by then every other hotel was full. So it is managing your pricing. Then it's making sure that you're looking at the distribution channels, because every channel has different costs. So are you controlling the price via the distribution channel? And that doesn't mean putting the price up so the channel that costs more, you're going to charge more on it. It's looking at which channels you will have open and closed as you get closer to the day and as pace increases. So if you know that you're going to sell the last few rooms direct over the phone, we'll close out your OTAs. So control your distribution. And then it's all about making that profit at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a starting point, Tamie, like understanding the right room or the right tour you're going to sell at the right time to the right client, it probably all comes back to initially having gathered some data to be able to make some of those decisions. So as a starting point, what would be important data for a business owner, if they're an accommodation owner or a tour operator? What if they're going to start to use data to make some educated pricing decisions? What would be a starting point in some of the data they would be collecting?
One of the most interesting pieces of data I love collecting is what we call PACE. It's understanding how many rooms, how many seats, how many tour places you have sold in the lead up to the day of the event. So 1 month out, we've sold 10%, 2 months out, we've sold 5%. You need to know how you are tracking. You need to know how you are pacing. So are you keeping the reports, or do you have a system where you can see so that you know when to panic or when to celebrate? The other one, you've got your key KPIs, so average daily rate, occupancy and RevPAR. They're the standards for any hotels, but don't fixate on one of them. So often I work with hoteliers, and when I start to have conversations with them, they will tell me their ADR is this, their ADR, their ADR, their ADR. And when I start asking them questions about occupancy or RevPAR, they don't know the KPI, they don't know the numbers. So they have fixated on one key benchmark or one piece of data at the detriment of all the other pieces. It's like a puzzle. You've got to understand all the pieces to put it together. So and then the most important thing, the data needs to be good. It needs to be clean. So whatever, you need to go back to the starting board. Are your receptionists putting in good quality data? Are they collecting the most important pieces of data? For example, we all know in marketing, we need email addresses. So are they getting email addresses so that you can create a sales and marketing plan? You need to be looking after all your data, and you need to make sure it's clean.
Sorry, so yeah, absolutely. So probably a really good starting point is your booking system you're using, or if it's an accommodation property, it's a property management system, or if you're a tour operator, it's a booking system, because essentially if you're channeling all your reservations and your bookings through a booking system, that will help you collect that data. If that's average nightly rate data or your average rate per person on a tour, important concepts to gather from having a type of property management system.
Yes. And it is, you've got to review all these things regularly. So quite often when I start working with a client, I start asking questions about things like, who is your competitor set? Who do you compete against? Same in tours. Who do you compete against? When did you last ask your clients? Where did they consider when they were booking you? Where else did they look? And it's not always geographical either. It might be that, for example, the customer's sitting in Adelaide and they're thinking, do I want to go to Kangaroo Island? Do I want to go to the wine area? Do I want to go inland? Where do I want to go? So you might be competing against people that you have no idea you're competing against. So you need that local knowledge. You need to be actually talking to your customers, whether it's on the bus, in the restaurant, at the reception desk. Ask them that really important question. Where else did they consider? Because your market knowledge, your competitor set, all of these data, key data points, you need to be constantly updating them and reviewing. And COVID has changed so much. So for example, in hotels, is one opened or one closed? Has one renovated? You've got to know what's going on in your local market.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. So actually, I'll just ask this question, Tamie, because you might have seen it come up on the chat function, and we've got a nice little group here to be able to manage it as we go. But Renee asks a great question about, can you not increase your prices from the start in event periods in advance?
Yes. You need to be really looking at your event. So year on year, how does it perform each year? So when you're looking at your pricing, you don't have one price for 365 days. You look at each event and you go, how does that event perform? What pricing do I want to have in place? And what restrictions do I want to have in place for that pricing, for that event? And put it in place a year out, 2 years out. You know when these events are going to be. And if you're not sure when the event is going to be, so for example, something like Easter or Grand Prix, things that move, well, then price the 3 weekends that you think it might be. And once the actual dates are announced, take the higher pricing off the ones where it's not.
Yeah.
So yes, put your price up straight away, but keep an eye on it. You should be reviewing your events at least every few weeks and see how they're performing against last year, especially now, because We have no fixed behaviour patterns. Everything's changed.
And particularly you can increase, like in the lead up to that event period, if you see the demand coming in, use that opportunity to make some smart decisions on how you can increase your pricing during that particular event period to be more profitable as well. Tamie, just something, whilst I know what you mean when you talk restrictions, talk to us on restrictions, because I noticed you popped that word in when we were just talking about pricing, and particularly in event periods. When we talk restrictions, what restrictions could an operator or an accommodation property put on in the event of an Easter weekend when they might be experiencing, when they might know they're going to experience significant demand? What sort of restrictions would you put on?
So Easter weekend's a really interesting one. Everyone wants to stay on Saturday night. If you have one night stays, they're quite high cost because you've got to turn that room over. So you've got a departure clean, which is a high cost thing. So you want to slow down the demand for one night stays. So you're going to start out further out with 3 night stay restriction. So you're forcing people to stay Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And as you get closer to the date, you might realize that your Saturday is full. So now you're going to take that 3 night stay off, and you're going to put maybe a 2 night stay on the Friday. So you get Thursday, Friday. You play around, but you've got to keep looking at the restrictions to make sure it's still bookable. Other things, close to arrival. This is a really common one I use with moteliers because they might want Christmas Day off with their family. So they don't want to be working the reception desk on Christmas Day. So we put a close to arrival on Christmas Day. Customers can check in on Christmas Eve. They can check in on Boxing Day. They can stay for 2 nights over Christmas Day. They can leave on Christmas Day, but they just leave their key in the drop box and go. That's quite a popular one we use. You might create packages that require you check in on a specific day. So you want a package that arrives on Sundays. So you would put in place that it's a check-in on Sunday only. So there's all sorts of restrictions you can use. You can also do dynamic pricing where it increases the price according to your occupancy. So for example, you might start out with $100 and no occupancy. It changes to $110 at 20% occupancy. It changes to $120 at 30% occupancy, and it continues to grow. Those are restrictions. You might close something to departure because you don't want guests checking out on that date. You might have hit a point where you have no more housekeepers to clean departing rooms. So you're going to put a close to departure on.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of different restrictions. Yeah.
There is some lot of different restrictions, and that pulls back to the importance of having either a good property management system or a good reservation booking system to be able to manage if it's dynamic pricing restrictions and essentially collect that data. Because surprisingly, you might not think you have it, but if you have a property management system or some sort of booking system, you'd be quite surprised with delving into the report side of things, what information is actually collected in the back end, potentially without you noticing it. And one other point on those restrictions, it really helps build out either a longer stay, and we're always trying to build out that longer stay, or in an operator's perspective, you could do that around a minimum number of people, because you know you're going to get a lot of demand. So you want a minimum set of, you're not going to run a tour for lots of, you want a minimum amount of people on that tour as well. So sorry, Tamie, we've just probably digressed a little bit from where we were talking about. Are you still happy for us to be on this page of the presentation, or would you like me to move forward?
There's only one thing I'd bring up there, is it's understanding costs. And this applies to a tour, it applies to an event, it applies to a hotel. It's really understanding your cost. And this is where you use restrictions as well, because you need to know how much it costs you to deliver the product, be it the tour or the hotel room. It's And that includes, so if we're in a hotel, that's your rent, that's your staff costs, that's your linen, that's your toiletries. For the tour, it might be entry fees, it might be the tour guide, the bus, etc. You need to understand your costs, because it's no point trying to manage anything until you know how much everything costs and how much money you need in the bank account at the end of the month to pay your bills.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. We're, talking on these common mistakes that and simple things that we could be doing in terms of adapting a bit more of a revenue management sort of methodology to business. And I think, Tamie, commonly we look at cost as in the cost of the booking. We know every booking that comes to us generally comes with a cost because it comes through a booking channel. Even if it comes through direct, it still comes through a cost because it's the cost to service your own website. But it's important to look at that cost, like you said, on a deeper level, isn't it?
Yeah. You should be able to. So often when I start working with a new client, the first question I will ask is, how much does it cost you to turn over a room? How much does it cost you to deliver a room? And very often they don't know, because I can't run special offers. I can't go after groups. I can't go after different market segments unless I know they're going to be profitable. So you've got to know what your costs are. And that comes back to creating a revenue management culture in your hotel. So do your receptionists understand what the cost and what's the profit? Because we got a bit slack in the last 10 years. We were quite happy to let online do all the bookings for us. And now we're getting people call the hotels and it's like, wow, this is going to cut down on our costs. But do your receptionists understand why they need to convert the bookings when customers phone? Do they understand the cost of how much an OTA booking costs versus them talking on the phone?
Yeah, exactly, versus a direct booking. Absolutely. Those costs are, like I said, we generally look at costs on sometimes a bit more of a top level, but it's really good just to get that deeper understanding on the cost to do, if it's the room or if it's to do that tour for one person, to make sure we're making, to use that to make some educated decisions for pricing.
Yeah.
Tamie, Michelle Bain has come on and asked a really great question regarding property management systems. Yeah. So, and I'll just read this on your behalf here, Michelle, but is anyone aware of a PMS that allows an operator to group book dates so that, for example, guests can only book Easter Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as opposed to a Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, leaving Monday unbooked? We use Little Hotelier at the moment, which doesn't seem to have that sort of functionality. Tamie, are you following what Michelle's asking there? Or I'm more than happy, Michelle, for you to, because we've got a nice sized group today. I'm more than happy, Michelle, for you to perhaps take yourself off mute. I can pause this screen share for you to have a quick chat to Tamie.
Michelle, it will be a case of, yes, Little Hotelier does have this functionality. We just need to understand what you're trying to achieve and then put the best restriction in place for you. So if you're trying to get people to stay, what I'm guessing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night over Easter, you need to have the 3-night stay on all of those dates. And what you might want to also have in place is like use your close to arrivals and close to departures. My email address will come up at the end. Feel free to reach out and we can look at it specifically for your property and make sure you've got the right restrictions in place for your Easter. Okay.
Yep, I've got a 4-night minimum anyway, right through the year, and we're 100% direct booking. So I do all of it myself. My issue is, what system to use.
PMS?
And Little Hotelier doesn't let me do that. So short of me actually blocking out dates either side so that people can't book, wacky dates around a long weekend or Easter, I'd like to do a different system. Little Hotelier is also quite expensive. So I just thought I'd ask the question if anybody else has the same issue and has a solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
we are working with a lot of hoteliers at the moment. We'll go through this towards the end. Changing PMS is a big thing that's happening at the moment because of COVID. And we're looking more at systems as to how, yes, their functionality, but also open API links. So what we can connect into the PMSs, and also contactless. This is a massive movement in the industry at the moment, is how we empower customers around COVID so that they don't have to interact. So yeah, there's some other systems out there that I would recommend you have a look at, but I need to understand a bit more about your property, how many apartments, bedrooms, and what else you need to link into, because we don't want to go and buy a system until we make sure it links to your other PMS or channel manager, or if you've got food and beverage, or you've got like a guest communication system, your accounting system, all that sort of thing. So Michelle, please take my email and give me a call afterwards. Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Michelle. Tap into Tammie's knowledge, especially because you've got the breadth of knowledge across multiple property management systems as well. I'll make sure I connect you guys both after the call. And we've had one other question come up in the chat function before we keep on moving on, Tammy, and this one's from Renee. I can only close certain channels in certain periods, allowing direct bookings in peak periods like Christmas and New Year. And she also uses
Little Hotelier.
And I think, Renee, probably the good thing is always post these sessions, guys. We do a recording. We will connect you with Tamie. And I think that's some great questions to tap into Tammie's expertise with, and particularly knowledge in Little Hotelier. So, Renee, please allow me to connect you with Tamie directly afterwards, and she can definitely help you with those specific questions as well. Fabulous, guys. I am just going to quickly flick back onto sharing our screen. Loving the questions, guys. Keep them coming through. Absolutely. Bear with me. So we're back on talking about some of the common mistakes. And I suppose it's common mistakes, but it's simple. The other way you can look at it, isn't it, Tamie? It's the simple things we could be looking at as well, looking at our pricing, keeping our data, to making the best decisions as well. But let's talk about probably, let's go on to talking about those booking channels, and particularly OTAs, online travel agents, if you're not familiar with the acronym, because, you know, sometimes there's that feeling in the industry, well, you know, they do take a lot of commission. You know, there's they sort of set out their terms and conditions to the property, you know, to the property or the tour operator. So it's a mindset thing about how to work with online travel agents in a productive manner, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. For me, the OTAs are not the enemy. They're a part of our business. COVID didn't kill them off. They're not going anywhere. We need to, as an industry, learn how to work them, how to control them, and how to use them to our advantage. So it's all about finding that balance. One of the things I'm very much an advocate of is using an OTA as the top line, the top part of a sales funnel. So an OTA is a starting point for a lot of guests. They will sit down on the couch at 8 o'clock at night with a gin in hand thinking, where do I want to go on holiday? What do I want to, where do I need to be next week for my business meeting? I just want a weekend away, and they're going to start on the OTAs. So you need to be there. You got to be, as they say, fish where the fish are swimming. So you've got to be on the OTAs, and you've got to make sure that your listing is optimized. So these guys are digital marketeers, and they're very, very good at what they do. And they've made it really easy for you to understand what will convert a booking. They give you a page score, a property page score. You need to optimize that, because that's the things that they know will convert a looker into a booker. And then you need to think how you are going to take someone from looking at the OTAs to looking at your website, to looking at your social media, and to book on your own website or pick up the phone and call you. Bear in mind, phone bookings are not free. There's still a cost of about 4 to 6% for a phone booking, because you've got to train that person, you've got to pay that person to stand there and answer the phone. So looking at really how you're going to convert someone from looking on the OTA and take them away from the OTA and book on your own website. And you've got to offer them something more, something that makes them really want to be there. And it doesn't have to be a discount. It doesn't have to be a bottle of wine. It could be that it's a different package. It could be that there's a lot more information there. It could be that you've really reinforced that you've got a different cancellation charge, and that you're working with customers and that they can call you direct and get reassurance, which is really important over COVID.
Yeah, and OTA is like a big, it's like a big shopping centre, isn't it, really? It's the online equivalent of where you can browse. And yeah, I do like it's about taking that customer on a journey. But Tamie, correct me if I'm wrong, there's also the opportunity, with the bookings that come through an OTA, there is also that opportunity, return guests are a big essential part of clientele that visit tour operators as well as accommodation operators. So there's a really big opportunity, just because they've booked through an OTA, there's an opportunity to change that once they come back again, isn't there?
So we work with our clients around the area of the email address. The customer's email address is one of the most important pieces of data you can get. So I know that Booking.com and Expedia just send you a masked email address, and it is only valid for 30 days post-departure. So if you don't ask that customer for their personal email address, you have lost them forever. So we also make sure that we are turning that customer, even if they booked on the OTA, into our customer. We want to take ownership of them. So we're sending them a pre-arrival email saying, hey, welcome to our hotel. We can't wait to see you in a couple of days. Visit our website where you will find information on what to do in the local area. Here's check-in instructions. Here's our contact details. Here's information about us. So we're creating that relationship with them. Once they're in-house, we send them another email, and reception is tasked with making sure they've got the direct email so it goes through to the customer. And it says, thank you for checking in with us. Thank you for staying with us. Here's a magic password to get a discount at the bar. Here's our emergency protocols. Here's more information on some hidden secrets to do in our area. So we're constantly turning that customer into our loyal customer. Once they've departed, again, thank you for staying with us email. We look forward to you coming back again. Make sure you've registered on our database for upcoming special offers. Make sure you leave a review. And then we have another email that goes out in a couple of months that we call a buyback. So here's a special offer to come back again. It might be just that we've created a package. It's not always a discount, a package, something different. We don't expect them to book again, but our goal is that they're looking at us, they're remembering us, and they might share our information with their friends and family. Those reviews are really important, and those clicks, we want them to be clicking on our website and seeing what's happening. We want them to be following us on social media. So every letter that goes out has our social media tags, because we want them to be sharing their photos and tagging us on social media, because that's free marketing. They're doing our marketing for us. So every step of the way, we are aiming to turn customers from OTA customers into our loyal customers. And eventually that email address becomes part of our newsletter database, where we're constantly touching base with them about once a quarter to say, hey, remember us. And then maybe they don't book, but maybe they follow our social media, or maybe they click on our website. Google loves people clicking on your website. Maybe they share the information with a friend because they were talking with their friend down the road that they were thinking about going somewhere, and the email pops up at the right time and they go, oh yes, that was that really great place we stayed, and they forward it on to a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, you know, Tamie, OTAs are just one of many channel, distribution channels that we work with. And these principles can be adopted anything. That if you're getting referrals from your local visitor information centre or through southaustralia.com, there are so many ways to use some of these tips and tricks, not only just for OTAs, for every guest you've got coming through the door, because ultimately we know the most profitable way to get bookings in is generally direct as well.
Yeah. We've got to work with them. They're our billboard. And one of the things I always say to hoteliers or people in the industry is, you know, back in 1982, you got to invoice every year from the yellow pages. Now, you paid that invoice every year without question because you knew you had to be in the yellow pages. Well, the yellow pages don't exist anymore. We don't have that anymore. But the OTAs are your yellow pages. It's where people go to look to find you. But your responsibility is to turn them from OTA customers into direct customers.
Absolutely. And while we're talking on this, Jane Paul's just popped up a really great question here, which we could probably just touch on lightly, Jane, but I think there is some absolutely some valid potential for you to connect with Tamie as well, which I'll do directly after this call for you. But Jane asks that she, of course, understands the huge reach that Booking.com and also a lot of the large OTAs have, Expedia as well, the large reach they have because they invest so much into marketing. However, 90% of her bookings via that channel, Booking.com, cancel close to arrival. So she stopped using them. Tamie, just briefly, I feel like this comes down to A, understanding your customer, but B, also around those restrictions as well that you can put on. What would be some of the, what's some advice you would give to Jane in this, this situation, Tamie?
Jane, I'd really like to understand where your property is located, because one of the trends we've noticed with Booking.com is that people will look and they will book a couple of rooms if they're going away for the weekend, and then they wait for the weather report, and depending on which location has the best weather, they cancel the other one. Or they've booked a couple of places or are watching a couple of places, and as prices drop, they cancel. So we need to look at what terms and conditions you have around your bookings, your deposit procedures, and how you're working with Booking.com, so that we can actually protect you, because they do produce some shockingly bad quality bookings, but they also have the ability to produce some good quality bookings. So we want to understand a bit more about your property, where it sits and what's happening.
Absolutely. Great question, Jane. And I'll connect you both after this call because, yeah, absolutely. There's always the story behind it. And it's probably just really important for you to turn around using this channel to the benefit of your business, not to the detriment, as it's obviously impacting you at the moment, hence why you stopped using it. Thanks, Jane, for asking that. So, you know, moving on, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, revenue management and things we can do. So what's our starting point? How do we make this work for us? We've got property management systems that some of us might be using, or tour operator systems that some of us are using. Looking at the data there, perhaps also looking at how we're working with OTAs. What's our starting point to make this work for us?
Start small. We're not asking you to be revenue management experts on day one. Just start out small. One hotel I started working with about 6 years ago, one of my first clients, when I first spoke to the owners, we can't change the prices. We charge $145 every night. Our customers like knowing how much they're going to pay. I can't change the prices. the first thing we did is sit and watch the data, look at what was happening in the hotel, really analyze the data. And then I went back to the owners and I went, you fill every Monday and Tuesday, every Tuesday and Wednesday, and you fill every Saturday. So I had the data, I'd analyzed the data, and then I said, right, we're going to change the price by $1. Oh, that was a bit scary, but it was only $1. And I was given the instruction, if they didn't fill on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Saturday, I had to take that $1 off. 6 years on, we are still increasing their prices by far more than $1 because it worked, and they make a profit every month and they increase their revenue month on month. But we had to start out really small because they needed the confidence and they needed to see how it would work.
Yeah, that's sorry, Tamie.
Scary. It's just like this revenue management is such a big beast, but just start with one little thing. It might be Tuesday and Wednesdays. It might be events. It might be Easter. It might be the weekends or something. Just start out really small.
Yeah, absolutely, Tamie. And that's some great advice, not only starting out small, but, you know, for those of you, even if you don't have a PMS, you'll have the information wherever you're recording your bookings on, have a look at a couple of months and go, look, what days of the weeks are filling, what days of the weeks aren't filling. And it's amazing what sort of gauge on your business and how you can start to make some really small tweaks by just looking at that historical data as a starting point.
And go, I know we all dislike the OTAs, but go to your market managers or call the OTAs or start looking in the extranets of the OTAs. Booking.com and Expedia give you a lot of analytics and learn your way around them. If you don't know how to use them, speak to your market manager or ring up the OTA and ask them for a lesson in how to use the analytics. They will tell you a bit of a story about how the analytics help them. So one of the most important questions you need to be asking if you're doing a lesson on how to use OTA analytics is, okay, what decision-making process do I do with this piece of data?
Mm-hmm.
So that's free. You're paying for it in your commission basically, but it's free. Use it. You don't have to. If your PMS is not the best and it doesn't give you the best reporting, you've got some amazing analytics in booking.com. You can also review your competitor set. You can do that yourself. You might want to just go and have lunch, go for a look, or even just pick up the phone and pretend you want to book them. And one of the really easy, free things to do is find a mentor. So a mentor, they don't have to know that they are your mentor. It might be just another hotel down the road that you like watching and you think they do things quite well, or another tour company, a big tour company that you think is going to do it well. You might just want to watch them and see what they're doing. There's a lot that you can do without investing money or changing PMS.
Absolutely. And like you said about reviewing your competitor set, a lot can be learnt from just calling up and booking a room somewhere else or booking in a tour somewhere else. Interesting to hear the conversations they're having with their potential customers and then the journey they start with their customers from the time of booking as well. You know, what does the booking confirmation look like in terms of an email? When are they communicating next to this guest in the lead up to their tour or their stay with you as well? So yeah, it's really healthy to regularly do that competitor set review as well. And what if you haven't defined your competitor set, Tamie? How do you go about going, oh, who is our competitor set?
Ask your customers on check-in, where else did you consider staying when you booked us? Mm-hmm. Go on to the OTAs as a customer and look for your property and then scroll right down the bottom and see what other properties they recommend, because they know where people are looking. Something like Expedia will tell you where you lost business to.
Right.
It's not always the property next door. You need to be watching the other hotels in town, ones that are renovating and coming up to your level, or ones that are closing, they drop out of your competitor set. You need to, when you're talking to corporate clients, where is their office based? Because it might be on the other side of town. So you're competing with a hotel on the other side of town for their business. Your competitor set changes. So a property that does a lot of weddings on the weekend might have a different competitor set for its wedding business to its bedroom business in the weekdays for corporates. So you might end up having 2 or 3 competitor sets. Once you start to format a competitor set, you need to have within it the most expensive property and the cheapest property, because you need to know who not to price above and who not to price below. And then you need some properties in the middle that are similar to you, so you can float with their pricing. And this comes back to finding a mentor. As you start to watch your competitors, you will find a property that does it very well, and you can watch what they're doing and learn from them. And you'll find a property that does it very badly. And again, you can learn from them because they're showing you what not to do.
Absolutely, some great points there. Thank you, Tamie. I'm just going to quickly deviate to a question from Renee, because it sort of goes back to on that topic of OTAs and you know, all the different channels you can work with. And this is in relation to TripAdvisor Advantage. What's your advice on being a part of TripAdvisor Advantage so they can direct to your website on there? Is it worthwhile paying for that?
No. So TripAdvisor Advantage is basically, it's listing your website, your phone number and your address. And my comment around that is we have this other lovely little invention called Google, where people can find your website address and phone number. It's also, there's another one called Facebook, where people can find your address, phone number and website, and they're both free. Google the TripAdvisor Advantage, there are some good things to it, but you really need to look at it and decide whether you can do them well. So things like creating videos, can you do that? If you can't do it, well, then don't pay for it. There's other things that in there, really analyze the package and work out whether you're going to use it. But paying just to have your website and email and phone number there, just use Google.
Yeah, fabulous. That's great. No, I appreciate that, your advice there on that, Tamie. So obviously we've got the starting point, and something that's really important to talk about is tech and optimizing our technology as a part of not just revenue management in terms of operating your property. And I think this is sometimes when it can get all a bit too overwhelming. You know, there's PMSs, there's channel managers, there's OTAs, there's, you know, there's so much to work with.
Yeah.
You know, how do you sort through all that and really optimize what channels, what platforms you should be using?
Well, every business basically needs a PMS. So it's got a property management system. It's the system you check in and check out of. It's where you manage your availability. And one of the interesting things we're doing with a lot of clients at the moment is reviewing the PMS. Is it something that's going to work for you in 2025? Is it got the links to the other systems you need? Because we want to be able to manage this all online. We don't want to be doing a lot of manual labor. So looking at your PMS quite dispassionately and saying, is it what I need? Because changing PMS nowadays is not as hard or as scary as you think.
Yeah.
Then looking at your channel manager. So your channel manager distributes your pricing and rates to the world. Is it working for you? Again, with these two systems, biggest thing, make sure you know how to work them. So a lot of people come to me and say, I hate my PMS. It doesn't do X, Y, and Z. And then I go, oh, you mean this? And they go, oh, yeah, that must be new. That wasn't there. I didn't know about that. And I'm like, it's been there a few years. we get trained in hotels by the departing staff member, and they were trained by the person who departed before them, and we get trained everyone else's bad habits. But when was the last time we reached out to support and got some real training on what our systems can do? The next thing you need to do, OTAs, site minder.
I'll just pause. I'll just pause you there, Tamie. Yeah, I completely echo your sentiments around training with property management systems. I myself, working when I was back in the operator side of things before joining TICSA, each 18 to 2 years, we would go and do a dedicated training with the property management system. So they would, they'd release an update to their system, and then they do the training around there. They're so valuable. So don't have that mindset, I'm only small, I have 5 rooms. It's not valuable. I always took out some really good takeaways from those training days that I could implement and become best practices within the business. So I really echo that sentiment on continuing to invest in your knowledge. And I've always found they're so helpful generally on the other end of the line. They have tech support there to help you.
Yes.
And whilst we're talking property management systems, for, sort of generally relates to accommodation, any of you or you on the call here that are tour operators, that's equivalent to your ResDs if you're using a ResD system, but whatever system you're using to make all your bookings through, it's this absolutely the same principles, same methodology that applies, no matter if you're accommodation or if you're a tour operator.
Yes.
And so channel management, Tamie, essentially for people who don't understand what a channel manager is, because that does come up quite often, can you talk us through really briefly, because I know we're running short on time, but there's so much to talk about here. What is a channel manager?
Channel manager is like your bus interchange. It is where it's like your bus terminal. It's where the rates come from your PMS and go out to the world. So it's your site minders, your stars, and it's what sends availability and pricing and restrictions out to the world. It's a really invaluable tool. They're adding so much more functionality to it, and they're creating connections, because a lot of PMS are quite dated. They don't have what we call an open API connection. The channel managers are creating connections to your accounting system, to your door lock system, to a guest communication system, to housekeeping systems, everything. So they're becoming a one-stop shop. And you do need to understand them. Another trick, just while we're here, SiteMinder, every year it puts out a list of the top 12 channels for your country. They analyze all the data that comes in and out of their system every year, and they tell you the top 12 channels. Get a hold of that list, just Google it, it's there. And then look at what channels they say are the best in your country, and then make sure you're on those channels. Or if you're not on them, why are you not on them? Might be that you're a motel and you're not an Airbnb property, that's fine. But it's a really great tip. SiteMinder does that every year.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that list too, Tamie. And really those channel managers, it's really in terms of optimizing your business, but also saving time. So if you're updating rates, and this is where we should be updating rates. We're not set and forget in terms of our approach. This is about revenue management and updating rates. You update it through your PMS. It connects to your channel manager, and then that pushes it out to all the channels that where your property might be listed on. So it saves you going, and for some people, perhaps not even remember. Yeah, absolutely, saving hours, and saving you, having to go to every one of those sites to where that information might be stored.
Yeah, it is. And the biggest thing, map everything. Just make sure it works for you. You'll get emails saying failed to deliver. I started working with a client last year. Their systems weren't optimized. They weren't set up properly. They were getting a lot of emails saying failed to deliver. I spent a couple of months just working through every email they got and making sure everything was mapped and working for them. And it suddenly reception was just like, I love you, Tamie. We have so much more time to do other things, because we might look at the bill for a channel manager and go, I don't want to pay that bill. I don't need it. But you're paying for it elsewhere in people's time because they've got to manually do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Tamie, it's a point that Renee's brought up as well. While we're talking on PMSs and channel managers and OTAs, GDS is another word that comes up, another acronym that comes up. And Renee sort of asked this question. Whilst I know, I'd really love your insight here, Tamie, to explain to our group, what is the global distribution system?
Okay, so it's like a secondary channel manager. So you have a channel manager, it connects to the GDS. The GDS then distributes to your travel management companies. So think of your corporate traveller. You will have, who else? Can't think of any names now.
Yeah, but BCD and
there you go.
Yeah, Carlson Wagonlit. It really works quite extensively in the corporate market. Is that where you'd really relate it to, wouldn't you, Tamie?
So every big business, big companies will have a mandated travel agent, and that travel agent sits in or at home now, but used to sit in a travel agency. They would log on to the GDS and they would go, I need a room in Adelaide, and they're going to the GDS and they're looking for it there. If you're not on the GDS, guess what? Expedia and Booking.com have learned to put you on the GDS. So you will be receiving bookings from the GDS, you just may not know it. If you want to look at a good GDS supplier, there's different ones. You've got anything from a 5-star full service GDS, which is something like TravelClick, and that does consortia programs. So consortia is where a lot of different travel management companies group together for discounted pricing. It will also do RFPs. You might have received emails from Lanyon in the past. So RFP is a request for pricing. That's where a corporate company has identified they have need for your hotel and they want a price for you. So you need to be on there. Or you can go down to sort of the budget home brand version of a GDS, which is something like the Hotel Network, which you pay $300 a year and 10% commission, and it puts you on the GDS, which is still cheaper than Expedia putting you there.
Yeah,
so GDS is very important.
Absolutely. So, and it's probably comes back to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tamie, it's about really identifying and knowing who your target markets are. So if you're, even if you're not based in Adelaide, if you're based in a region in South Australia, but there is some heavy industry that's coming out of that region, what is that industry? If that industry is agriculture, well, let's look at the businesses in that agriculture industry that are working out there. And it could be simply going in and talking to them. Who makes you a simple question? Hey guys, you guys got people traveling here. Who makes those bookings?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming from our head office. Well, we'll tell you, 100% of the time, if those bookings are coming from a head office, they're coming then through a corporate travel management company. And then they're like a BCD or the likes of what we suggested, and then they're coming through the GDS to you. So it's understanding really who those target markets are, because that could be another channel for you as well.
Yeah, it is really, really important. And quite often I work with a motel in regional Australia. I put them on the GDS and they get a whole new market segment because there's not a lot of other properties there, or they've been listed by Expedia and Booking.com. And so the listings aren't optimized with good information, because each channel applies to a different market segment, and you need to change how you are listed on each travel, because your family doesn't want to know that you've got work desks and you can work from the hotel room, whereas your corporate traveller doesn't really care if you've got a kids play area. So you've got to make sure your listings are optimised for the market that books through that channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Tamie, it's just there's so much to talk about in this space and so much knowledge to share, and I'm really excited to say to our audience on the phone, you know, we're going to be continuing to develop some workshops with Tamie on revenue management to help educate you all, and you know, connecting you with Tamie as well. She's an expert in this field, as you can see, and it raises all sorts of questions for us all. So whilst Tamie runs her revenue management company, she's here to educate and, like we said, upskill industry. So what we'll do post this call is send out an email with the recording, but also connect you with Tamie with her contact details. And I'll just do some one-on-ones with a few of you who've raised some questions as well, so you can connect with Tamie. And also she runs a mentor program, which is a bit of a, you know, there's an opportunity there for you to, if you go, wow, this is something I really need to learn more about, we'll link some details to that mentor program that Tamie runs, because that's a sort of a 10-session program you can do, but it's also a pick and mix, so you can pick components of that that might work well for your business as well.
Yes, it's aimed at small hoteliers, it's aimed at independents, and it covers everything from Google, social media, through to actual revenue management as well.
Yeah, lovely. Well, guys, I'm really conscious of everybody's time today, but I feel like we've had such a valuable conversation. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now so I can see any faces, if I can see any online. So yeah, it's been a really valuable day today, session today, just to really begin that starting point about revenue management. Hopefully you guys have taken away a couple of little hints and tips to perhaps what to start to look at as well. If you've got any further questions you want to ask Tamie now, please feel free to pop them on the chat. Otherwise, you're more than welcome. Like I said, I can connect you post this session as well. Although having a quick look, thank you, Jane. Jane is sort of sharing with us, she has a 4-bedroom retreat in the Adelaide Hills, which sounds divine, and uses SiteMinder as a channel manager, and she can really highly recommend using SiteMinder. I've used SiteMinder for years when I was an operator too, Jane. It's really good. It's great, has great functionality, doesn't it, Tamie?
Definitely, it's a great channel manager, and often we don't know all the functionality in it. We forget to use parts of it that we were showing at the training session. So it's a really good one. If you do have SiteMinder, bring up the support line and ask when is the next training session, and they'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good point. And it's about this with all our systems. Like, you know, we only use what we know, and it's kind of comes down to a bit of habit too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's about, you know, whilst we think, oh, I've got to invest some time in it, it's actually a really big priority to do, because it can make a big impact in business. You've just, you know, invest a little bit of time, and if you just, you know, unravel a new little nugget, it can open the door to more business or optimizing your business as well.
We're creatures of habit, and we press the same buttons every time we go into our system. If you look at how you behave as a person, we go back to our PMS or our channel manager and we hit the same buttons again and again and again. And sometimes we have to sort of slap ourselves around and say, I'm going to try hitting different buttons. I'm going to see what happens with this new report, or I'm going to have to investigate what this area does, and just force ourselves to try something new. Have a look at our systems from different eyes.
Yeah,
but
lovely.
All I can say, it's not scary changing systems. I know a lot of people think, oh my God, I don't want to change my PMS. It's going to be so much work. It really isn't. It's not as scary nowadays.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you, Tamie. Thanks everybody today for being on our session, and I hope you've all taken away something or we've started that revenue management conversation, and like I said, continue to watch this space. I'm really excited to deliver some more education to our members in this area. Thank you, Tamie. Really appreciate your expertise on the call today. And like I said, after the session, we'll flick you all out an email so you've got a recording along with the resources and the information on how to connect to Tamie as well. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Tamie. And I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, Cathy. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.